Hello everyone, and in this video we're going to take a look at adding health to our agent, our NavMesh agent cube, so that when we fire on him it deals damage. We'll have a health bar indicator that follows the player. You could do this health any different ways. You could have the health be shown as like a texture on the character, or maybe an animation on the character to show that you're doing damage to it. But in this particular case, we're just going to put a basic health bar up there. To do this, we're going to actually set this up so that it's inside of the scene and placed within the agent. So, and it will end up following the agent around. So to get started, we should probably set up this health bar. So to do that, I'm going to create a new canvas, and we'll call this health bar. And this particular health bar is going to have a component on it, and you can have multiple canvases here. Now this this UI component that we're going to add to it, we'll add it in just a second, is going to be an image, but we're going to change the screen space from this to world space. Okay, and what that'll do is whatever we have applied to it, it will be within the camera's world. Alright, so we have that set up. The next thing we need to do is create an image component. So we'll go to UI and create image, and I'll add an image here. And right now the plain old image doesn't have a whole lot of features, but sprites, if you add a sprite to this, it has the ability to be able to change the fill of it. So what we need to do is create a sprite now to add to this image. So I'm going to call this one health bar, and we'll then go into our materials. I'll create this in my materials folder, and I'll go up to the plus arrow, and I'm going to create a sprite. So under sprites, go to sprite and then square. We'll create a square for this, and I'll call this health bar. Okay, so now that we have the sprite created, you can make any changes that you'd like to make in here, but there aren't that many changes we're going to have to make, because everything else we're going to have to make in the image. So I'll jump into the health bar, and we'll put that sprite into the source image. And you can see once you put the sprite into the source image, it ends up giving you some other options inside of this component. So you need to have a sprite added to it to get these options. Alright, so to start this off, I'm going to change the height to about 20 on this guy. And I'm zooming out here. And actually probably a little bit small. Let's do 10. And I'm going to move it down so we can kind of see it in world space at the moment. And it's huge, so maybe 10 is a little too big. Let's do this at 2. And let's do the width at 2 for now. Let's do 10 for the width. And what I'll do is I'll drag and drop our health bar onto the agent and reset its position in the X, Y, and Z, so that it shows up with our agent here. So I'm going to move it up here. Position Y, position X. Set this to 0 and 0. And there it is. So I can move this health bar up. It's still a little big, so I'll edit these. I'll set this to 0.5, and I'll set this to 5. That's a little bit more reasonable. And what I'll do is I'll just take the canvas and rotate it so it's facing the player for now. And the health bar image itself, what we could do is we could change its color to red. Cool. Now we're going to need something to be the background so that we can show its fill. So I'll take the health bar and I'll Control D to duplicate it. And I'll change the name of this one to health bar BG. And I'll change the color to black. And what we'll do is we'll drag health bar BG so that it's above the actual health bar. And what will happen here is if you scroll down to the image component here for the regular health bar, and we could just call this health bar FG, so we know it's the foreground. And what we could do here is change the image type to filled. And what filled will do is allow us to change how this thing gets filled. So you see this fill amount? What you'll see is right here it does like this clockwise type of fill or counterclockwise type of fill. So what we could do is change this to horizontal, and we want the fill origin to be the left hand side. And what will happen here, actually we will do right for the fill origin, and as the damage takes place you'll see that what we'll do is we'll decrease this fill amount. So when it's at half health, it'll be somewhere around here, quarter health, and then no health, and then he'll die. Okay, so that's how you can create a simple health bar, and it doesn't have to be in world space like I have it here. Like this health bar could also be placed on the HUD somewhere, and it could be a health bar for the player. So it's a quick and simple way to create a health bar. And if you had some sprite images with some graphics, you could just swap them out with this basic color sprite that we just put on it here. Alright, so a couple of things. I think before we start to apply damage to the health, what I'm going to want to do is make sure that it can travel with the agent. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll make it so that it travels with the agent. So what we're going to do is we're going to write a script for this, and we're going to call this health follow. So I'm going to jump into the scripts folder, hit the plus sign, and create a new script and call it health follow. And we've got this opened up in, oh, I don't have this open yet, so let's open this up. And we can get started on this script. So the health follow script is basically going to look for the enemy and the player. It's going to follow the enemy, and it's always going to face the player. So what we need is a couple of variables for the enemy, the player, and then some sort of distance that we can offset it by using a vector 3. So the first thing is going to be a public, and it's going to be a game object for the enemy. So this is going to be the enemy that this particular health bar is assigned to. The next thing will be a public transform, and this will be for the player, so that we can make it always look at the player. And then the last thing we're going to need is a private vector 3, and this will be called offset, and this is going to be the distance between the player and the not the player, the enemy and the health bar. So this is how far it's sitting above it. Alright, so we're going to set the offset. This offset is going to be equal to the transform position of the health bar minus the enemy dot transform dot position. And once we have that offset, what we'll do is we will set the transform dot position of the health bar to equal the enemy's transform position. And then we're going to want to add to it whatever our offset is. So this will be set automatically for us when it starts, this offset value, and it's going to make sure that when we move the health bar with the enemy, it stays in the same position above him. Now the last thing we need to do is make sure that it's always billboarded towards the players, and billboarded means that it's always going to be facing him. So what we'll do is we'll say transform dot look at, and transform dot look at, what we'll do is we'll say player. So it's always looking at the player. Alright, so we should be able to save this. And what we're going to have to do from here is take this health bar canvas that we have parented to the agent, and we're going to unparent it from it. Okay, so the health bar is going to be its own thing. And what we'll do is drag our script, so the health follow script, onto the health bar. And then we'll drag the agent into the enemy parameter. And then we'll drag our player's character controller into the player. So now if we hit play, the health bar moves with the enemy. And you can see no matter what direction I face in, it's always going to face the player. Okay, and you can make this bigger or smaller, how you like it, however you would like it to be. But this is just a good starting point for a prototype that you can work with within your game. Alright, so now that we have the health bar created and it's following our player, let's deal some damage to the enemy and make the health bar update. So to do that, what we're going to do is we're going to write a basic script for that, and the script that we're going to be making for this we will call enemy health. So if I jump back in the scripts folder, let's create a new script, and I'll call this enemy health. And let's open that up. And this enemy health script is going to have a couple of values. It'll have a default value for the enemy health at the top. So this will be a public. I guess we could create a float value for this, and we'll call this health, and we'll set it equal to a default of 50F. Next, we'll create a private float, and this will be start health. And start health will set to, well, we won't set that initially. And we'll also have a game object for the health bar. So we'll do a public for health bar. And we're going to have to import the UI to be able to edit that image. So using Unity, not .unity, but Unity Engine .ui. We're going to need for this. And we'll create a public image, and this will be for the health bar graphic. So we'll call this health bar GFX. Alright, so we have all of that together. We'll say start health is equal to health. And then in the update function, actually I don't even think we need the update function for this, so let's get rid of it. And what we'll do is we'll write a couple of functions to take damage and one to destroy the player. So we'll create a public. This needs to be public so we can access it from our raycast script. So public void. We'll call this damage enemy. And in damage enemy, what we'll do is we'll send a float to this for damage. And inside of this float, what we'll do is we'll say health minus equals damage, right? Update the health, and then we're going to take the health bar graphics, dot fill amount, and we're going to set this equal to the ratio of health divided by start health, and then if health is less than or equal to 0, player enemy dead. Alright, so we need the dead function here. So what we could do is, if you type in dead here, let's just do a little example here. Dead, D, and open close parenthesis semicolon. You should be able to right click this and go up to quick actions and refactoring, and we'll generate a method for dead. We could take out the throw non-implementation exception here, and what we'll do is we will destroy the health bar, and then we'll destroy the enemy. Alright, that's pretty much all you need for the health, I believe. And we're calling it dead there. Good. Alright, so let's save this. Now let's jump back to Unity, and we'll select our agent, and we'll add the enemy health script to the agent, which should show up at the bottom. We're going to need the game object for the health bar, and we're also going to need the foreground graphic to be loaded in here. Next, what we need to do is in our raycast script. So let's open up our weapon script here that we're performing the raycast where we fire. What we'll do is we will apply damage whenever we hit the enemy in the scene. So what we could do here is say hit dot transform dot game object. So hit dot transform dot game object, and what we'll do now is we'll apply some damage to him. So we'll say get component, and we'll grab the enemy health, and then we'll call the dot damage function, the damage enemy function that we created, and we'll send to this whatever damage the weapon is supposed to make, which is weapon damage. So we'll say weapon damage, and that should do it. So what it does is, through the raycast, because it can detect what game object it's hitting, we could take that hit, grab the game object, use get component to grab that script, and call that function on it. Simple as that. Alright, so we'll save it. Jump back into Unity, and now if we hit the play, let's bring our enemy around here. Let's fire some shots at him. You can see I shot him. He has that big knockback, and boom, loses some health, loses some health, loses some health, and he's gone. Pretty cool, right? Alright, so in this video we created the health damage, we created the health bar, we made it interact with our weapon firing. In the next video, what we'll do is we'll start setting up our cube so that he can patrol around the scene, and then we'll add some animations to this.